I just wanted to bring you to Julio. We haven't seen him for a while. I've got some finds of his I'd like to show you from his last year's detecting. Let's get with Julio and check it out.
Oh, hi. You probably thought Alan had killed me after me finding that Real out in that field in Chasey, New York, but no, I'm alive and kicking.
It was close.
But we're doing a kind of this was supposed to be the end of the year video. And what we're going to do today is we're going to just show you a portion of what I found by myself. This represents the finds from 6 different locations from 2019. Come on in and take a look. By the way, we don't always get to get together with Alan, so this is a great occasion. We live a couple of hours apart. And
we have a guest.
And we have guests. Now, if you come in on this one, on this particular one here, we've got one site. Oh, let's get Moose out of there. This was one site. Again, virgin site, cellar hole. Okay, we've got 2 coins. A rather large British coin, I'd say. Very smooth.
I'll get a bit closer on
but
that one.
much larger than anything. And I've really looked for detail on it, and I think that at the time it was dropped, it was quite smooth. Now here on the other hand, we have a barely identifiable King George as well here. So this is we're talking 1740s, 1750s period. So this particular house site, from the research that I've done, ranges was inhabited for a very short period of time, maybe 10 years. So this is perhaps why the meager finds around this cellar hole. Again, an untouched site. No one had been to it, and I just discovered it last year. This represents yet another site. Again, in my humble opinion, I don't think anyone had detected this site previously.
Look at those spoons, mate. Oh, they're great.
And the one feature that really tells you, the one artifact that tells you of the age, of course, is the spoons. And anyone who has been metal detecting for some time will recognize these spoons as being very early 1700s.
They call that rat's tail, guys. See on the back of the bowl? See the way that line goes up from the handle? That's called a rat's tail, and that's late 1600s, very early 17. When you get to like a rounded part, like kind of what Julio's holding onto now, that's called a double drop. So the little round part is we call this the drop, but that's more of a double drop because it's elongated into the spoon bowl. If it was a single drop, it would be later 1700s. So this one is kind of like 1740s, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So again, this represents one location. Needless to say, several of these buttons, when they were in the ground, I absolutely went bonkers, because if you see something like that at the bottom of your hole and you think it's a coin, but lo and behold, it's a button. And it's still a very cool find, because again, this dates all back to the mid 1700s. And my favorite from this particular site, I was floored when this came out of the ground. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see as much detail as I can, because quite often some of the finds they're not done justice by the camera.
That's it, mate. Get the light on her. That's it.
But this is a 1781 Irish halfpenny, and I'll show you the reverse now. And there you can see the harp and hibernia that a lot of us colonial metal detectorists are quite familiar with and we love. And down below would be 17 on the left of the harp and the 81 on the right of the harp.
Well done, mate.
And this was a wonderful, I was delighted to see that coin come out in that condition. If we come over here to this one other site, we have again one of the signals, one of the indicators of the age of the site is the spoon. You notice the discoloration. And that's because it was very close to iron, so it's not the same color as that.
Yeah.
And then again, variety of buttons, some pewter that have fallen apart or in the process of just disintegrating. A very thin coin with a very precise hole drilled right through the middle. Unidentifiable colonial coin. Very thin, copper, and very thin. Devoid of any detail. I think if there had been any detail, I think it would have been discernible even, say, like this King George here. I can see the bust facing left. Hardly anything on the backside, on the reverse, except the legend. And we have another site,
All right,
and again, more colonial coinage. And again, you can see the big difference between that 1781 Irish halfpenny and other coins that come out of the ground in similar sites. And this is just devoid of all detail. Okay, there's barely anything there. Perhaps the only way to identify this coin would be by weight and dimension, but again, that would be...
It's just so hard to get the coins and copper coins in any kind of shape.
Yeah.
If you get pockets of good ground, you can get it nice, as you've seen in previous videos, but it's really tough.
We're talking 1760s, 1770s, these artifacts. The fragment of the shoe buckle is absolutely beautiful because I would have loved to have seen the whole thing, but
Yeah, it's
even
lovely.
a fragment is...
See the flower
is
there.
It's so...
Flowers all the way around, actually.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very, very ornate
pretty.
shoe buckle. And then in contrast, you have the very nondescript, very pragmatic, simple design.
Yeah.
Just meant to do what it without the need to impress anyone.
Yep.
Yeah. Cut copper, the way they used to make chains
Oh, yeah,
in colonial days.
Now, what sort of...
And this is a King George. They chopped them right. So if you were to hold it upright, you'd see that's the top of the head, and he'd be facing this way. The bust would be facing.
I can see where
to
it's
your left.
cut. It's almost like a rough cut, like the blade went in like that.
It would have been a chisel.
Yeah.
So it was chisel, dude.
Yeah.
And then maybe just a snap. So
Yeah.
chisel it and then snap. Now, so again, this is representative of about five locations. And then I got into the real insanely...
The real
British.
meat, the real meat and potatoes.
Yeah. And for me, I was always wondering what it would take for me to find a military button, and but a really nice military. I found Civil War buttons and that, but considering the age of the region that New England and so much history, I couldn't for the life of me. Why was I finding Civil War buttons and I couldn't find anything older military until last year? So it's taken me 14 years to actually find something along these lines. So we're going to start off with a 62nd British Regiment of Foot button, and barely identifiable, but thanks to this book, by Don Troiani, whom I've actually spoken on the phone with regarding these buttons that you're about to see. He helped me with the identification and as well as encouragement. And he shared some wonderful experiences. And I highly recommend you pick up this book if you're...
Where can you get that book, Julio?
This book you can get on Amazon. I'm not going to tell you the price because it fluctuates.
It might scare you too.
Well, it might scare a few folk. I know there's people out there with and quite, I'm not rich by any means, but this was a must get for me personally.
A great tool, yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
For identification.
Yeah.
And every military button that I unearthed last year, I was able to identify thanks to this book. So this is a 62nd, and I believe this was a field molded because it is so crude, it is so barely legible, the 62 on it.
So field molded, what do you mean by that, mate?
So this would have been something that had not come with the uniform. This would have been something that a soldier, they would have had a mold out in the field that they would have made crude copies of what it originally came with their uniform in order to maintain the integrity, the appearance of their uniform. So that's one way that they did it. So you have very crude casting molds that were used in the field in order to upkeep their uniforms.
The uniform, all
and
right.
this might be an example of that. Then we have, from the same site, we have a 17th
That's very clear. on that.
Regiment of Foot British Revolutionary War button.
Is that pewter material as well?
This is white metal, correct. And what I forgot to show you on the other one is the loop and shank. And this often, the backside will, if you find a button like this, you will be able to discern the difference between a reenactment or a replica for reenactment purposes from an original by the mold line in this particular type of shank or loop. And you can see that it's quite crude. Of course, it's old. It's been in the ground for 200 years and subjected to physical strain as well during its use. But there's the loop flattened out, and we're going to show you the front again. And you can see the 17 there.
Yeah, it's lovely. So clear.
And the 17th Regiment of Foot, His Majesty's 17th Regiment of Foot, saw action last in Princeton, New Jersey, before heading back up to Canada and then ultimately back to the UK after the Revolutionary War. Now, what I'm going to show you next is, here's an oddity in New Hampshire, 70 Regiment of Foot, British. Now, this regiment was stationed in the Caribbean.
Wow.
And how it wound up here in New England is beyond me. Either somebody, a veteran of that war, decided, oh, I'm not going back to England. I'll stay in New England.
Yep.
or perhaps just somebody. This was something that was passed on.
It's pretty.
And given as a gift of sort. Mm-hmm. And then we move on to this very odd. I'd always wanted to find a USA button.
It's the pièce de résistance, guys.
And I thought, I really wanted to find something that was very emblematic of the Revolutionary War here in America. And a good friend of mine in my presence at one of my sites found a USA button. I always thought if I went back to that same site, I'd find one, and I never did. I found a variety of pewter buttons from the 1700s, but never that USA button. And then I forgot about it, and until I came across something even rarer than a USA button, and it's this button right here, which is marked FDM. Now, the experts cannot agree on what FDM stands for, or why there's a crown above the three letters. There's whatever debate has been going on in the past is they've concluded that yes, Continental Army enlisted soldiers and officers wore these buttons. There's two varieties. This is the smaller one. There's one of these that has been dug down in New York. And here's the thing: the trend is that all of these buttons, the very few buttons that have been dug, have been in slightly worse condition than this one, and they've all been collected at camps that historically were known to be Revolutionary War, American Continental Army.
Okay, guys, here it is.
It gets really iffy because here we said that there are some buttons of a military nature that have still defied identification, so they don't know what regiment. Where there's a lot of speculation, and American camps also yield a quantity of cast pewter copies of British enlisted and officers' pattern buttons with cast die shanks, which is what I demonstrated earlier. The reason for American soldiery copying these buttons has also eluded satisfactory explanation.
So that shows you the rarity of the thing. They can't even really pin it down to who it belonged to. They just know it was in the camps, so they know it was being worn by soldiers.
So exactly, we know that that enlisted soldiers from the Continental Army and officers as well were wearing these on their uniforms, but in very limited quantities. And why the crown and the significance or meaning of the initials FDM are beyond anyone. I personally floated. Just personally, I never shared this with anyone, but I thought, oh, 1st Delaware Militia. That's as close as I can get.
Can you think of anything? And if you can, please put it in the comments so we can see that and have a look at that.
I think it would be fascinating if we could finally get, because there's no written record of these buttons, their significance, or their what regiment. But we know for a fact that the Continental Army, so enlisted soldiers and officers, were wearing these because these have shown up at camps, but in very small quantities.
Will that be your favorite find of the year?
Absolutely.
That's your number
I think
one?
that was it.
Yeah.
And I don't how crazy I am about Spanish silver, but that definitely, that one button really did it for me.
It's something very personal as well, isn't it? Like, it's a personal thing that, you know, you can tie to a revolutionary soldier at that time.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful. I love that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
As much as we all love the silver, it's personal items like that that really rock us. You know, like for me, it was the lunar volver. Oh, I think that's how you say it. The lunar clock that I found. That was a very personal item to somebody, and they felt the loss when that was gone.
Yes.
You know. So.
Yes. And as far as these are pieces. These are snapshots of American history right here, all contained in just this piece of white metal, which has been cast and imbued with that historical significance.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
it's amazing.
Alan and I decided to have a little road trip, and we headed out to Chelsea, New York, to participate in the great. I already forgot what it was.
Pound the Ground.
Pound the Ground, which is I'm not sure that name really didn't take with me. I like Digstock. I like what they've done for this.
That's where we're headed in 2020, guys.
We're going to be going to Digstock in 2020. But at Chelsea, New York, at the Pound the Ground event, I was lucky enough to get Spanish silver, an 1821 2 real, in pretty good condition.
I think it looks well. I mean,
I think so too.
The silver looks well. You know, it's got that nice gray patina.
Yeah. It's now when I saw it in the ground, I recognized the bust immediately, because I have found later examples of this with King Ferdinand.
Guys, I don't call this guy the Silver Spanish Slayer for nothing. You know, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
he's got some good stuff.
Well, that's for another. That's for another episode. But
that's for another time.
I think it might be some of the Spanish blood that's part of the thing.
I think so.
That and my fantastic dowsing abilities. This was one of the highlights of 2019 as well, and not to mention the fact that Alan and I, living a couple of hours apart, we do get together to hunt, but this was of special significance because it was we'd never been together in a car for as long as we were on that occasion.
And we didn't kill each other.
Oh no, on the contrary.
We had a grand old time. It was good.
Yeah, everything was fantastic. Kyle was able to join us in Chelsea, which is an honorary member of the Silver Hunters, if not a full-fledged member, because he certainly earns his keep on the last time around. But it was a great time, and I think that was a highlight. We met a lot of wonderful people at the event.
Yeah, it was great.
We're not the most popular. I mean, in terms of there's a lot of well-known people out there.
We're just a tiny little YouTube channel out in the wilderness.
And quite frankly, I like it that way. I mean, if someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I've seen your videos. That's great," and I hope it's been educational, because I particularly I'm not for the whole, "Oh, give me a pat on the back." This is what we're here to inspire people and educate, and we're having fun doing it. So 2019 started with silver. Even though it wasn't the silver that I was wishing for at the time, considering the age of the site. This was the backyard of a house that I was working in, and I found this very nice 1906 $50.
It's a nice one, mate.
Yeah, very nice. I've not cleaned it actually at all since it came out of the ground.
You have to find one of these. It's on the wish list.
Straight to a case. So. So 2019 started with silver and ended with silver, because that was in October when we were at Pound the Ground.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to keep up my average. I worked it out for 14 years. My average of I need to find at least one a year of Spanish silver.
One Spanish silver.
My 2019 quota was met with that one. And speaking of Spanish silver, I think that maybe, just maybe next or sometime in the future, we ought to talk about Spanish silver a little bit more. Okay, and
we'll take a tour of the Spanish silver slayers.
Yes, and because a lot of people wonder why Alan calls me the Spanish silver slayer, which is triple S, I guess. Would that be a
triple S
nickname? I'm not sure, but I guess this is it's easy to impress somebody with a coin this size.
Yeah,
I guess.
sure is.
But yeah, we'll share some other time and talk a little bit about Spanish silver and how it came to be here in America during the colonial period.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank you
mate.
for
All
watching.
right.
And don't forget to subscribe. My friend Alan here is going to cry if you don't subscribe.
Yes, mate.
Please. Thank you.
Top man.